Hello, everybody. Welcome back to NYC Crime Spot. I'm joined once again by Pete the Pick, Lafroscia. This will be episode 3, Pete. Episode 3 of the Pick. How you doing?
I'm doing the best I can, I'm still here. That's important.
That's important for sure. For sure. So we're gonna get into a lot of interesting things in this episode. Pete, you had an idea, and it's a good idea. Just some things you've been thinking about. You want to start off the show maybe with a story, just a story of your own, something that's been on your
Right,
mind, maybe something funny from your past.
right. So whenever you're ready to hear it, and I hope you enjoy this. If not, I hope you write in and say no more funny stuff. Get right to the point.
No, we're ready.
Okay, this is in the 70s, 80s when Florida was like flooded with cocaine, good stuff, right? And I used to work for a guy at Marlin Imports. It was a Mercedes dealership. My father was like his best friend. So one day we're up at his house in Ocala, right? And I'm getting ready to go to New York, right? So I leave from New York. I come back 10 days later, right? So I come back to the guy's house, right? And I'm walking in, and I got eerie feeling. Like I see the guy staring at me, and my father's like trying to look away. I'm saying, "What the hell's the matter with these guys?" So just as I get into the bedroom, I hear the guy say, "Hey, Pete." I says, "Well, what's the matter?" He said, "I got to tell you something." I said, "Okay." I come back out. He says, "We took your stuff." I'm saying, "What the fuck stuff is he talking about? I don't leave stuff there." He said, "We're sorry. We didn't mean to do it, but you know how it is." I says, "Yeah, okay. I'm playing along now." I says, and he said, "But we'll replace it. Just tell us what it costs." I go, "What the fuck?" So he says, I said, "Where'd you take it from?" So he told me where he took it from. So I knew exactly what it was when he told me that. Back in the day, I used to get upset stomach and stuff. They used to sell these big round apple sauces, right? So
Yeah.
I had one in my bag, and from bouncing around, they got crushed up to nothing, right? So they thought this apple sauce was cocaine. Check this out. So he says they take the apple sauce and they did it all right. And I'm looking at him. I'm saying, God. He says that was really good stuff. He says, so I'm trying not to laugh. So he says, "What do we owe you?" I said, "Shit, man, that's about 2 grand." Got my right in his pocket, whipped out 2 grand. And he's finished, and he's saying, "Do you think you can get any more of that for us?" I'm thinking we're the closest pharmacy is. And I said, "I don't know. I'll find out." I says, "Oh my God, what?" I says, "These guys are a trip." My father and this guy. Oh, it's
So you
good
had
stuff.
Alka-Seltzers in your car that
No,
basically ended up.
I was staying in his house. It was in the room I was in.
Okay.
In his house when I went to New York. And
Yeah.
they went in, they found the alka-seltzer thinking, "What the fuck?" And they did it all, whatever it was.
Oh my God.
I
I got
went
to
to the
ask you, Pete. Did you take a little try of that after to see if it really
oh,
was?
I kind of went by their word. You know what I mean? They said it had a little burn to it. It was a little fizzy. I said, "Jesus Christ."
Oh my God.
When they asked me, could I get any more? If it wasn't my father and this guy that I really liked, I would have said, "Sure." 2 grand for alka-seltzer any day.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even think that's funny, but you had to be there.
No, that is
See the
funny,
expression,
Pete. That
see
is
their
funny. That's
expression.
like out of a movie. That's something
Yeah,
you see in a movie.
yeah,
Guy
when the
starts
guy
snorting
sneezed on it,
Alka-Seltzer.
yeah, don't have the they asked if they had an upset stomach. Anyhow,
So, I wanted to start with something interesting, Pete, because if you know about, that book Murder Machine that came out in 1992, Jerry Capisi, right? It's the
right,
only book ever written about DeMeo and all these other people. Obviously, you're inside the book. Of all the characters that are in the book that are portrayed as criminals in this book, of all the guys that are portrayed as criminals in this book, none of them, with the exception of Dominic Montiglio, has ever publicly commented on the book, Pete.
uh,
Which is I think is pretty interesting. Obviously, there's various reasons why, Pete, why some of them can't comment on it. Some of them are not here or either incarcerated. So, Pete, when did you first hear about that there was this book coming out and you're probably going to be in it and all these other guys are in it that you're on the streets with? Tell me about that.
well, I was on the phone. I was in MCC at the time, Metropolitan Correctional Center of Manhattan, right?
Okay.
And I was talking to a friend of mine. He's all jammed up with this Peter. You know what? I'm saying, "What's the matter, Larry?" He says, "This is book." I said, "Yes." He says, "And you're in it?" I said, "I'm in it." He says, "Yeah, it's the murder machine." So he says, I said, "Well, really?" He says, "Yeah, I'm going to send you a copy if I can." So at that time, he couldn't have a book with a hardcover on, so he tore the hardcovers off and he sent it to me. And that was the first time I've heard of the book and had actually a chance to read it. It's
Okay, wait. So
it was a little entertaining, but when you've
right,
been
right.
there,
It's to say the least, it's a little entertaining, Pete. I think whether it's true or not, I mean, we'll get to that, but I think it's more than a little entertaining when you really but and I don't mean to laugh because there's some serious stuff in the book, so I don't want to make like it's a joke. But what is your opinion of the book? You said it's entertaining. Tell me your overall opinion of the book, Pete.
well, I got to look at this way. You got to remember something now. This is a trial for 17 months we're on, right? And one of the court jurors was a journalist. Okay, so he had asked the judge. He had to get permission from the judge to write this, and he did. The judge gave him permission, providing that any of the proceeds would not be given to us; it would be given to the victims, the families. Which is cool. They deserve it. Not only was he didn't really understand how to write the book, but he had all the information from 17 months built up. Right? So he goes to Jerry Capisci. We all know who he is. He writes for the New York Post and stuff like that, all the crime stories and stuff. And together they sat down and put this together. Now, I look at it this way. They put together what they heard, what was going on. And I'm going to say 90% of it, was prosecuted, was what he was, put across for having us, convicted, right? So the book is it's got some truth to it. I believe that in my heart. You know what I mean? I know that's fact. As a matter, I should say.
Right.
But some of it was so elaborated because the prosecutor trying to make his point that it's just kind of like got out of hand. I mean,
Yeah.
even Walter Mack was going to be charged with perjury for some of the stuff that he said.
Yeah, I
On his
just want to go
phone.
back. I want to go back real quick, Peter. And I hate to cut you off, but
So,
you're saying, and you've said this to me before, but I don't think we've ever spoken about it publicly. You're saying that Gene Mustaine, the other name on this book, this guy right
right.
here, you're saying that he was a juror?
Yes, I believe he was a juror. Yes, that's how he got all the information. You know, he
Interesting.
he he had. You got to remember, they were paying $5,000 a week for the transcripts. That's a lot of money. For 17 months, you add it up, comes up to a nice chunk of money.
That is a
And he
lot.
was and he was there, and I believe I'm not 100% sure that I was watching him take notes. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I mean, he must have had the thought that this was going to be. You got to remember, it was Giuliani's first case. Paul Castellano. You got two big guys. One on one side of the fence and the other on the other side of the fence. He must have felt there was something there if he could write a book, and he did. You know,
Right. Right. So, Pete, out of 100%, obviously 100% being 100% factual, which many books are never. What is the percent of truth to what you feel is not truth in this book?
I feel I'm going to say 50-50 on that.
50-50.
Yeah, I'd
Okay.
say, there's a lot of things that were true, that I could say for a fact were true. And there's a lot of things that were elaborated on trying to make them sound true, prosecutor to get his point across. You know what I mean? He took what he had and I believe he elaborated it just to a point where we knew it wasn't true.
Interesting. Okay. No, that's interesting, Pete. And like I said, this nobody that's in this book, outside of Dominic Montiglio, and some of the book comes from him, of course, has really commented on the book. So I think that's probably a first, Pete, for you to be talking about this book. So one more thing about it, Pete, because it's got to be weird to be in your position when you open it, because the hardcover edition, there's your photos in it, your mugshots in it, and your name is in it. Um, what is that like? Do you get a weird feeling after something like that?
I'll tell you what that's like. I just like look at it and say, wow. But other people that see it and know me, they give it a double wow. Wow, you're this, But sometimes certain things that you do in your life, it's just things that you do. When other people see them and hear about it, they think it's like the greatest thing in the world.
Right.
So that's just it.
Yeah, so Pete, in furtherance, of this literature here, Murder Machine, if you read it, if anybody reads it, it says some bad things about you, as far as an incident that you, according to this book, according to what maybe the government believed, that you were involved in. You went to trial in the late 70s for a double homicide in relation to the deaths of John Quinn and Sherry Golden. So
Correct.
you did go to trial for that in the late 70s, P, right?
Yes, I did.
Um, and do you want to talk about that trial, that first trial?
Yes, sir. I'd be more than glad to enlighten everybody about
When
that.
did you get picked up for that? Let's really go through it.
Oh, that's gonna be tough now. Um, what happened was I was in somewhere else in prison, right? And all of a sudden I get this like a detainer. I can't remember exactly where, right? And they bring me back to New York, right? And they charge me with arson. You know what I mean? And I'm saying, I never burnt nothing and nobody else like that. You know, it's not me. So we get there, right? So we're going through this whole file, right? So now you got I forgot how much bail, very high bail on me, right? So I'm telling my lawyer, I had nothing to do with none of this stuff. None of his Steve Flam here, great lawyer, right? And I said, listen, they came in with a fucking arson charge. And all of a sudden they come up to the table with me and my mother and my wife. And they said, well, we're dropping an arson charge. I said, well, that's good because you know I didn't do it. Yes, but Mr. Lafroscia, we're charging you with a double homicide. I said, what? That goes up another $1 million now, right? I said, Jesus. So the lawyer asked me about it. I said, listen, I had no knowledge of it. I wasn't even there. So now it goes on like this. The lawyer goes to the judge, right? No, he goes to the prosecutor's office to talk to him about the bond, right? And the prosecutor tells my lawyer, he said, listen, I don't give a fuck what anybody says. That's including the judge. We're not giving Mr. Lafroscia any bond. But he's innocent. We're not giving Mr. Lafroscia any bond. I don't give a fuck what the judge says. So the next time we're in court, right? So it comes up to the point where they're asking, can I get bail, right? And the prosecutor gets up and he says, no bail for him. He's a danger to society. So with that, my lawyer raises his hand and he says to the judge, may I speak? The judge says, sure. So he says, Your Honor, I was in so-and-so's office yesterday and we talked about it. And Your Honor, can I be put to the point? He says, yes. He says, he didn't give a fuck what you said, Your Honor. My client wasn't getting bail. The judge goes to me, he says, did you say that? So you're on the oath, he told me. He says, yes. He slapped the hammer down. He said, $100,000 bail for Mr. Lafroscia. Okay, so I got out. So now I go back. Now we're on the trial. Now I got acquitted as a child in the state
Right.
by my jury. Now that was for murder. So now the feds are charging me not for murder, but for denying them their civil rights. Same as murder, if you look it up.
Right. That's what Henry and Ronald Usier got charged with in reference to the Falcao and the Dowd incident. They got the civil rights.
Correct.
And then they reversed it the next year. But yeah, similar charge. Yeah, they take it as a very serious charge.
Yes. So I'm sitting there in the courthouse, right, on trial, right? And I got this witness. His name is John Bennett, I believe his name was.
Joseph Bennett.
Joseph Bennett. He was cousin to John Quinn, I believe, something to the effect.
Okay.
So it goes on, that I'm reading the transcript. It said a guy, Pete Lafroscia, with a beard, came to him, right? Offered him X amount of dollars to bring his cousin in so they could do what they had to do to him, right? Because he was about to be an informant on a couple of guys in New York, big time guys. And so I'm saying to my mom, I don't know this guy, So he said I had a beard. So they didn't bring him on right away. So I go back to the holding cell. A couple of days later, I grew a nice little beard, as you can see if you look at it,
Right.
And my lawyer said, what are you, fucking nuts? I said, that's how sure I am. I don't know this guy. So he said, you're crazy. So the time comes, right? They call him up to the stand. Then he goes, ask a few questions, blah, blah, blah. He says, you know Peter Lafroscia? He says, yes, I do. He says, is he sitting in his courtroom? He said, yes, he is. So he says, could you point them out? He says, I certainly can. And I'm saying, holy shit, what's this going down to, right? So the prosecutor goes, could you please point to Mr. Lafroscia? Now, I know you know how the defendants went in the line, Anthony, Joey, Henry, me, and so on. So he points, right? And I think he's pointing at me, right? And I started to stand up, right? And he jumps up screaming, you're not being Lafroscia. What the fuck is
Yeah.
going on? Now I'm really tripping out, right? He says, you're trying to trick me. And he moves his hand over a little bit to Henry. He says, that's Pete Lafroscia.
Yeah.
I looked at Henry. I said, what the fuck? He says, I'll explain later. Never got to hear an explanation, but that's why I'm trying to tell you that 50-50 of that. But the reasons that I say that certain things like that, what I mean, that the prosecutor is so sure weren't what they were.
Right. Right.
So,
I mean, like we're saying, according to this book, FYI, everybody listening or watching, according to the book, this is what we're saying. Joseph Bennett had said that you tried to approach him numerous times to set up a contract for DeMeo, and
for John, set the contract for Roy, for John.
right,
Okay, yes.
right. That's according to Bennett. He said you tried to approach him numerous times to set it up. He said all types of things. This is a good. You said to him, this will be easy money. This will be good. You should do it. This and that. They were saying that. Listen, I don't know how true it is. It's right here. You left a message on his thing to come to the Gemini Lounge. To Quinn's. That's what they were accusing you of as well.
Right.
But none of that was held up.
No, because when it came time for Joe Bennett, you said to point out the guy that actually was talking about me, he pointed to the wrong guy. And he got very adamant about it when he started yelling. That's not that. He thought we were trying to trick him,
Right.
And then he said, "That's the guy." And he pointed over that way,
Right.
Now the disparity in the two guys. The guy he pointed is like 6'1". I'm like 5'7". It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Wait,
Now, there's another interesting angle to that comes up. I believe this comes up in the first time that you're tried for this in the late 70s. There is a Paul Vario angle that appears from somewhere. Can you explain? Can you explain how Paul Vario came into this?
Yes, I can.
And go ahead. Yeah.
I was taking cars with this other guy, right? Who wound up to being he was a CIO along, right? And one day I should go to Gefkin's and Paul's all the time, you know what I mean? Have dinner and shit down there. But he had a big junkyard, right? So the witness tells the jury that I'm very close with Paul Vario. As a matter of fact, he was there one day when Paul Vario said, I like that gold elephant on your neck. Can I have it? And supposedly I gave it to him,
Yeah.
Now, funny thing is, when this trial was going on, I didn't know that Paul had people sitting in the back, listening to see what I was going to say, right? And if I went through my whole thing, right, and I proved that, we were just friends, I mean, that's it. I knew him for a while, I knew. So when I finally got out from that, I was called down to Gefkin's, by Paul, right? And he said to me, we became a lot closer after that. He says, I see what you've done. You're a man. You're a true man, man of respect. You didn't say nothing about anything. You know what I mean? And I really respect that. He says, if you ever need something, just come here and let me know. Now, I couldn't figure out. He says, yes, I had a couple of guys in there listening, and they heard exactly what you said about me, and that, thank you very much.
Right.
And that's how I got to know Paul up at.
So that confidential informant, you didn't name him, Pete, but it's public who that person is. Do you mind if I name that person?
I'll send his last name, Kemp.
Okay, Willie. Right, there you go, Kemp. Right.
Yeah.
So what was the point of Willie Kemp though bringing up Vario? What was he just trying to put you in a position that you're doing more dirty work over here, or what did it have to connect to exactly?
That's just about how it connected. I was freelancing on both sides of the game. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Now, let me explain to you a little bit. Willie Kemp. We used to steal cars together, stuff like that, and he thought I was freaking around with his girlfriend, Benet, because she used to come to my house, but she was just waiting for him,
Right.
And that during the trial, I found out that they had, if he's down here in Florida, I believe they got him, brought him back, they were going to charge him with a homicide. This kid had no he wouldn't even shoot a fly. One time he got beat up real bad. He called me up, right? By the time I got to his house, he was screwing a silencer on his gun and he shot himself through the hand. But I know he did
Shit.
that on purpose because he didn't want to do nothing, you know.
Wow.
And during the trial, he just went off on that tangent, you know, that it was, you know, just who I was. I told him this, I told him that. Shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go. I want to go back to the Vario thing for a second because I don't want to lose track of that because people are going to be interested in this. If we fast forward to the early '80s when you get picked up in Florida and they take you back to New York, you're identified by law enforcement to the press as a close associate of Paul Vario Jr. That's how they identify you. They identify you as Pete the Pick, and they say a close associate of Paul Vario Jr. So, just generally, Pete, how long did you know that family, and what was your experience with the son? Did you? I would
I
love to
knew,
know more about that.
I knew them. I knew them as well. So I was invited to barbecues and stuff like that, you know. But the funny thing, if you read that article, right, it associates me with the Genovese, I'm sorry, Lucchese, and again,
Lucchese,
right, and you can't be part of both of them, right? So now I
right?
got to come back to New York and straighten this out. So I get back, right? So Roy already talked to Paul, right? And then I got to come down to dinner, lunch, whatever freak you want to call it, right? So I get in there, right? And I come in, walking in, there's Paul and Roy sitting at the table, right? And there's two dishes on the table, right? They invited for me lunch. Where the hell's mine, right? You know what I'm saying? What's up? And there's a chair there. He says, "Come on, sit down." I got a bad feeling, you know what I mean? I don't see no dish, no little to lunch. And I'm looking at it, right? And they started talking, right? And I guess they couldn't hold it no more because they seen I was nervous. They started laughing, you know what I mean? He said, "What do you think? You think we're having you for lunch?" He said, "Told I forgot who it was. Giuseppe, bring him out a plate, some food." You know what I mean? I thought for sure it was time to go. You
Really?
know? Yeah, because it was something to do with some drugs, you know, and shit down there. And it was frowned upon. I mean, don't get me wrong, open all day long, but don't get caught. Don't have it publicized.
Right,
So
right.
anyway,
Okay.
but here I
Okay.
go. Here I go. But it was funny. Finally gave me a plate of food and we were all good.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, Pete, I know, yeah, you say you can't be both. I mean, I guess you can't be made into two families, but judging on who you hung out with, I mean, you kind of seem to straddle the lines between Gambino, Lucchese. I mean, I don't know if you look at it that way, but when you kind of start looking at it, is that wrong that the paper might have said that when you think about it?
Well, I'm going to tell you how it changes from being wrong to right. Let's go back to the money, the consumers. You know what I mean? If I make the money with them and I'm still kicking into them,
Right,
they overlook it because I'm not a made guy, like you said at the time. And
right,
that's it. You know what I mean? So they're going, hey. And it was nothing of how can I say, man, I just liked everybody right at the time, you know, and I
right.
seen a lot of good things and some of them a lot of good things. Now I loved Jimmy Burke and I loved Anthony Stability. Them guys, they were really close. I was really close to Anthony, and that was
Anthony
his.
Stabile, interesting. Can I hear something about him?
Yeah, great blue eyes, Anthony. He was a great guy, man. I'm telling you, man. I love that guy. How can I say? One time we get picked up, right? It's late at night. They pick us up, right? They take us out to Jersey for this lineup. I'm saying, what the fuck are we being charged with, Anthony? He says, they charge us with a hijacking. I said, I never did a fucking hijacking in my life. So they come out with these sketches, right? This other one don't look like Anthony at all, but the one they showed to me, I swear to God, thought I was looking in the mirror. I said, "This is fucked up, Anthony." I said, "I ain't leaving here tonight." He said, "Nah, don't worry, it don't look like you. I'm looking at me. I'm telling you, don't look like me." So bottom line is they finally take us, right? And they put us in the lineup. I didn't get picked out, but he did, you know.
Yeah.
So I went home. But Anthony and me, we got along real good. I mean, he's a sweetheart. I can't. Somebody said something to me one night coming out of this club. Said not to me. I got pulled away. Said something about me, and Anthony just turned around and pounded that fucker. Pounded him
Really?
so hard he broke his wrist. He broke his wrist because he had him on the ground. That's all he hit him. So
Wow.
don't ever talk about Pete like Anthony was
Yeah.
a happy-go-lucky guy for who he was. You know what I mean? He was like, well, the right hand man there. You know, and It was funny, man. I really, Anthony, Anthony and Tommy. Tommy was Santa Claus every year in prison, so you know he was a happy-go-lucky guy too.
Yeah, that's
So
funny, man.
I have a problem. I have a problem with Jimmy when I meet him. Right, I want to rob trucks. Right, he says,
Hold on. You're talking about Jimmy Burke right now, right?
yeah, Mister
Okay, yeah.
Goodfellas.
Okay, let's hear it.
He tells me I'm too small. I said, I'm too small. He kind of like insulted me, you know. I said, okay. So that night I go to the airport, right? I start this tractor trailer. I can't get the fucking thing to move. I'm revving, I'm trying to. So the guy comes over to me and says, you having a problem with it? I says, yeah, it's stuck somehow. He stuck somehow. Yeah, he says, you see the little red button there? You gotta pull that out. That's your brake release. Yeah, brake release. I said, motherfucker, I pull it out. Now it's about 5:30 in the morning, right? I'm driving, I'm cruising. I get in front of Jimmy's house, right? And I'm blowing the fucking horn. Wah, wah. Jimmy said to Anthony, look out the window. Who the fuck is that? So Jimmy comes out and says, Petey, what are you doing? I want to show Jimmy I can rob you. He says, are you fucking crazy? So he goes back and Jimmy says, it's Petey. He says, Petey, what does he bring in a fucking stolen truck trailer from front of my house for?
Who came out of the house to talk to you first?
Anthony Stabile.
Oh, Anthony Stabile. Okay.
He's always with Jimmy. And excuse me, got a cold. So Jimmy comes out and he says, he looks at me, he shakes his head, he goes back and tells Anthony, tell him to drive that fucking thing to the warehouse and wait for me. Now I drive to the warehouse, right? I want to go, right? I'll leave it in the warehouse, I don't give a shit. I want to go. And Anthony says, I got to stay. I said, oh, here we go again. Funny, he says, if you ever bring another fucking blow them horns in the morning, I'm going to whack you. I said, okay, Jim. that was it. That was the end of him, you know? But I got along good.
He was happy to take it, right?
For free, yeah.
Man, that's funny.
Anthony, you know, it's a shame what happened to Anthony. You know,
yeah, he got shot dead in the 80s, right?
I got a call one night and said, you got to come down. Anthony's not here. So they brought me to this parking lot. There's a crowd of people around it, right? And I bopped through the crowd a bit and I looked down. They had a blanket over him, you know, but I seen his feet. It was a pair of slippers. I gave him some funny slippers for Christmas. Broke my heart. You know? Yeah. Over something stupid. Always is over something stupid.
Yeah.
Somebody's kid. You know. Yeah.
Crazy stuff, right? Crazy stuff, man.
Got that right.
Whew. So there's just been a lot of other things, Pete, that I've been wanting to talk to you about, and a lot of people have been asking. You know, they kind of want, you know, no one's here to talk about it, so they kind of want like a character assessment, I guess you could say, of certain people. If you'd be willing to do that, Pete.
It depends on certain people. I'll be honest with you. You know what I mean?
Okay, I understand. Okay. Well, I think Roy might be one of the easiest ones for you to speak about. Probably, right? Roy DeMeo. What kind of guy is that as a person? Not maybe what we read about in the book as a person, and then maybe a funny story hanging out, maybe something like a personality trait, something funny that you think of, maybe.
Okay. I want to tell you about Roy. Roy was who he was, okay? You know, he would never ask any of us to do anything that he wouldn't do himself. As a matter of fact, it was something, he'd be the first one in the door. I call Roy a sleeper. I always did, you know. We call him the rooster. You look at him, you see a little chubby guy in a shark skin suit, you know what I mean? Never realizing how strong this guy was. Here's a funny story. I come home from prison, right? The feds call me a lumberjack the way I look. I was in good shape, right? So kids around with Roy. I says, hey, man. So he says, I'm going to gym on Sunday. I said, you want to come? He says, yeah. I said, I'm going to show this sucker up, you know what I mean, to get to the gym, right? So I'm about 165. I start warm up with like 125, right? I get about 275 on bench and say, it's like what am I weight, right? So I said, now you get down. This fucker warmed up with like, I think like 200, went to like 450 like it was nothing. I said, motherfucker. Like
he was benching. Yeah,
like it was nothing, right? So we do all that shit. So I said, okay, I'm gonna get him on a cardio. I've been running fucking, I don't know how many years I was in prison, but I ran every day. So we're on the track, right? I'm running around. He's right there, this motherfucker. Can't get rid of him, right? Fucking after a while, I got to the point I just couldn't go no more. And he went past me a little bit. He said, what's up? I said, what's up, motherfucker? I got so sick, I had to go to the bathroom and throw up, you know?
Really?
But yeah, he ran me to the ground. I come out and I say, He said, see, don't let the cover fool you. But I'll tell you what, from working in the butcher shop, that guy had a grip from holding the meat or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
You couldn't get, if he grabbed you like this, I don't give a shit. You weren't going nowhere. Nowhere. You had to be
Really?
King Kong to break loose from his grip. He was a strong son of a. But you look at him, he's a sleeper. Little short guy, the chalk shouldn't scoot. Nah. Now, the only thing I can think of funny about Roy, a couple jokes and stuff. But one time we're at dinner, right? And he used to tell us, listen, I don't care what you do with the drugs, whatever you do, don't do it when you come to dinner. It's only 3 days a week, maybe an hour a day time.
So no
And
drugs for dinner when you have meetings.
right, right.
Where
Don't do
where's the meeting? Set the scene. Where's the meeting?
Gemini.
In the back apartment?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So,
Is Dracula there or no?
oh yeah, Jack was. He was there every time for cooking. Jack could cook pretty good.
He would cook dinner. Okay. Okay, cool.
And
So that's the scene.
now,
Okay.
now dinner's over. We're all standing outside. I'm not going to mention no names, but we're leaning against cars. And Roy comes out smiling. He's a happy-go-lucky guy, right? And he's just walking past us, and I'm watching him. Just before he gets to me and this other guy, right? He wets his finger. What the fuck is he doing? He walks past it and he rubs it under his nose, this guy, right? And he keeps going. Then he turns around and he said, what the fuck did I tell you? No drugs before dinner. He tasted the cocaine that he had on his nose.
Wow.
Yeah, just like that,
Wow.
man. Yeah.
Wow.
And to me, it was funny. Maybe it ain't because the guy he did freaked out. I said, we all freaked out. I said, holy shit. But yeah, it
So
was funny.
you say you freaked out. Explain that to me. You freaked
When,
out. Well,
when,
because you kind of you sounded like you were scared of Roy for a second.
if you weren't scared away at some point in your life, you weren't human. You know what I mean? You knew what he was
Interesting.
capable. You knew what he was
Interesting.
capable of. You know what I mean? But you know he was like his family. And that to me, like he told him one time. Before the trial, first double homicide trial, somebody wanted to have me whacked because they didn't believe I would stand up, right? So a couple of guys at the table stood up and said, "Are you fucking crazy? So you're telling us every time that one of us get charged with murder, we're going to get killed?" So they started going at it, right? So Roy stood up and said, "Let me explain something to these guys. Use on my arms and my legs, okay? Nobody here whacks nobody. You understand?" And Roy said, "Pete's been around for a while, and he's never, ever said a fucking word. So where you came up with that, I don't know, but don't ever do it again." I mean, that's how
Right.
that
So somebody in the crew
right,
proposed when you're going to trial for the first time in the late 70s for the
right,
John Quinn and Cherry Golden incident.
correct.
Somebody in the crew proposes to put you in the soil or
Right.
at the soil at the Fountain Avenue dump, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I hope they would have did a little
you
better
want
than
to say
that.
who that is?
Harvey,
All right. I was hoping you would say because he's long gone.
yeah, and everybody jumped up and said, "You gotta be kidding me."
Right.
Just like that, they said, "If we ever get charged with anything like that, so that's gonna be your suggestion." And that's when Roy said, "Oh, slow down. Using my arms and my legs." And that's all I'm gonna say. Then he said, like, Pete's been on trial many times or accused of anything, and he's never ever said a word. And I trust him with all my
Right.
heart.
Right.
That was it. That ended that.
What is Harvey Chris Rosenberg's what's the psychology behind that? He's known you for a very long time. You guys go back to your 16, 17 years old, messing around,
Oh,
stealing cars. 10 years later, for what
was
would seem to be, a major thing that occurred, I understand, but you guys are supposed to be on the same team, right? What's the psychology behind somebody like that wanting to do that? Was he that fucking
psychology,
whacked?
psychology that as people that were killed for whatever reason on besides besides Sherry Golden, something else to do with a hijacking, right? That he was totally involved in. So definitely he was scared of going to jail. I don't care what anybody tells me. He's never been in jail, maybe a day or so, which ain't shit. But
Okay.
he to me, I don't believe that he would be able to do time. You know what I mean? And that was his way of eliminating that kind of problem. You know what I mean? I seen him do shit. I heard about him doing shit to people because of what he thought. I know one time this kid, good kid that he did a lot of business with, he took him off the count, right? And I said, this kid never said a word either. because I spoke to the lawyer that the kid was going to see, right? He says, no, you gave me no indication to say anything. Then I realized that the only reason he did that because he wanted to be with his wife. Is that a scumbag move or what?
Wow.
Yeah, but
Unbelievable.
that's the truth, though. That's honest truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting when you have someone like that who's a Jewish kid from Brooklyn who becomes, he's supposed to be, a nice Jewish kid, right? From Brooklyn. He's got a good family.
Beautiful
And
family. Beautiful
he,
family.
and he turns into something like that. It's got to be a wild thing to behold, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah, once he found the power that the gun, that was it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see him get beat up regularly by this kid named Mikey Muscles. And I never
Mikey
seen him.
Muscles.
Yeah,
Interesting. Mikey Muscles. Tell me about Mikey Muscles. It's interesting you brought him up, Pete.
tell you about it.
Do you
That
remember
guy.
his last name?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I never cared to know him because he was a real piece of shit.
Right. He was what you call, I believe, what you call a pederast.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes. And yet
Yeah.
he had a charm. He had a charm life. That fuck. I'll tell you what. He was the type of guy who would rob your house, right? And tie your girl up and sodomize her in front of you. You know what I mean? So I just never could understand and how this kid that was hanging with him, that his father was somebody, let him hang with him. And every time he seen Chris, man, it was on. He just started wailing on him, right? And Chris never did nothing back. I couldn't understand that. I said, fight. We should be lose, you lose, big deal. But if you let this kid think he can just pummel you to death for nothing and he walk away like laughing, there's something wrong with you. It's been on for a long time. And we'll get into the story about Mikey another time and Chris. It's very
Okay.
interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll save that. We'll get back to. We could do a whole episode about characters like that. I mean, because
Yeah.
I've gotten emails from people about that person, Pete. Um, just as a side note, one of those emails included somebody who was abused by him at Kings Plaza Mall, randomly assaulted, and a lot of other things that I heard about that character.
I'm telling you,
Um,
there's no great love when he disappeared. I can tell you that.
yeah,
Nobody fucking blinked an eye.
I imagine. Yeah, I could imagine. Wow. Yeah. So we got some good stuff on Roy. There's also some other characters that that I was wondering if you can enlighten us on, Pete. These are guys that no one really speaks about, and it's up to you if you want to speak about them. And then, of course, we're going to get to your stories too. This is kind of a an undercover, an underground choice, I guess. A guy by the name of Paul Dordal.
Paulie Pinto.
Correct. What's the deal with that guy, Pete?
I'm not sure with Paulie, but I know I did time with Paulie and I hung out with him a few times. He's a tough kid. I'm gonna tell you a story about Paulie, how he became Paulie Pinto, his nickname.
Yeah.
He was dealing, I think, with either Mexicans or Cubans, right? And one day he goes away, right? Goes to meet them for whatever reason, right? And this is what he tells me. They take him out on a boat, right? Him and this other guy, right? Now, once they get him out in the ocean, right? Not really in the ocean, but out there a little bit. And the guy, they tell him, who's the rat here? And boys look at him, what do you mean who's the rat here? Now, they can't go nowhere. They're in the ocean in a boat. And they brought him to a place where they had a cannery back in the day there. So all the cannery, all the slush that went out went into water. So what happens with all the slush out in the water? Guess what comes? Big fish, sharks, a lot of
Yeah.
sharks. So Paulie thought it was all over. He says, this is it. So they take Paulie down in the boat, right? And they hook these wires up to him, like battery cable, whatever the fuck it was. And he jumped at him, and he jumped at him. And as that happened, a while later, his pigmentation from that spot turned white. You know what I mean?
So they put wires around him.
No, on his testicles. Not around him, just on his testicles. I mean, if you're going to shock somebody, that's the place to go.
So they were giving him an electric shock.
Right. And,
Okay.
So they finally come to the conclusion that it wasn't him. You know what I mean? So they bring him up on deck, right? They put him towards the back of the boat. They tell the other guy, get close to him because we want you to push him over because he's the guy. So now Paulie's looking at them, right? And the guy's going, "Fuck it, I finally got away with this." From what I understand, when I walked over to help push Paulie in, they turned around and pushed this guy in and apologized to Paulie, and but
That's
that's
what
how he
Paul.
gets.
That's what Paul Dordal told you that
That's
happened.
yeah, and that's how he got the name Paulie Pinto from the white spots on his thing, instead of Paulie Dordal.
So he had
Now,
white spots on his skin,
right, like a Pinto does almost. You know what I mean?
like on his hands, on like.
Yeah, not so much on his hands. It was privates around that area. Wherever he got the children.
Okay, okay.
But he was a tough kid, as far as I'm concerned. But he went. He really went. From what I understand, he went legit. He had medallions, taxi driver medallions, and he went into a good operation. I haven't heard from him for years. And if you're around Paulie, just to let you know I love you, and I know you're not a bad guy. You never were. You were hardly ever there. You know.
Okay.
I
Interesting.
hope
All
the
right.
taxi cab business is working out great.
Yeah. Okay. Just another character, a
That's a
part of
character.
just another character, right?
Yep.
So, Pete, what neighborhood did you grow up? I mean, we spoke about it a little while ago. I just want to refresh everybody. What part of Brooklyn exactly are you coming out of?
Coming out of Flatbush, really. I was born in Kings County Hospital, and
Flatbush. Okay.
yeah, we lived around there. Eventually, we went from Kings Highway to uh, Canarsie, basically.
Where did you spend most of your time in Canarsie?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. You know,
Yeah, I want to ask you something about Canarsie, Pete, because
uh,
I look at like East New York, Canarsie Flatlands, that whole kind of thing there.
right,
And then you look at the other side, right? South Brooklyn, Bensonhurst, Gravesend, both areas at that time that were infiltrated with organized crime, right?
right.
But to me, I don't know how you feel about this. I look at Canarsie and the landscape and what was going on there is like kind of a little more lower class, maybe a little more grittier than what was going on maybe in Bensonhurst. What do you think is the difference there? Is that a right assumption?
I'm going to tell you about the difference. Let's go geographically. Okay, Canarsie, as you went further into Canarsie, was a lot of land, like regular land. Not Fountain Avenue, but regular lands. A lot of Italians that lived there lived in these small little homes, and they would grow their vegetables. They were like living off the land, basically. A lot of them,
Right.
you
And
know what
I'm
I mean?
sorry. Let me just go back here. I don't mean lower class. I mean like more maybe middle class to lower middle class. I don't mean like impoverished, but just different than maybe like Diker Heights, Bensonhurst,
Correct,
organized crime over there.
correct. They were strong, healthy Italian families, most of them. You know what I mean? That set up in there, and they just lived their lives in it. Now, a few of them that came out of there probably wound up being in same situation I was in, or no problem. But basically, I had uncles in there, and you go to their house, you think you're in a farm.
Yeah.
Everything they had was growing. That's about what that's the difference I believe in that. See, they didn't have that situation in Benton or whatever. It was
Right. But what about your time on the streets, running the streets, as far as like looking at it from like organized crime and the types of people that grew up in different areas, like the type of characters that came out of certain areas? Do you think there is a difference between, let's say, the Testas, the Centers, Lafroscia, growing up in Canarsie, East New York, the junkyards, all this shit, and then the guys that are like in a nice neighborhood in Bensonhurst, Gravesend? Do you think there's a difference there, Pete? Does it have to do with anything, you think?
I don't think so. That is just like if they didn't have those different names for each borough, I believe it would have been all the same, one blur to it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
They well who they were, and that's it. Just different. Bath Beach, look at that. I mean, they were all basically the same thing. And a lot of times, even though it was that over there, over here, a lot of times they got together and made money together too.
Of
You know.
course, yeah, yeah,
But as
yeah,
far as once you stepped into, I'm going to say how I say going more east in Canarsie, Flatlands, you became more farmlands and stuff like that, really. So you got to Long Island, and then it was all farms. So
oh, yeah.
they were solid rock houses and everything. But like I said, if they didn't have borough names to separate them, you would think it's one big thing. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
there was guys from the Gambinos in Canarsie, there was guys from the Chasey, and they all had their crews in different areas. So
right, right.
you know,
Yeah,
So
I just always thought it was kind of like a different way to grow up, like in a different, like the scene was different, and there was like different characters, you know, like as far as like Canarsie compared to like that other side of Brooklyn. But yeah, maybe you know, maybe there isn't a difference. I don't
well, we had a lot more room to play stickball. They didn't.
know. That's funny. That's funny. Tell me about Patty Testa and Joey Testa, and I guess was there like a reputation that they had, like that family around Canarsie at the time, and was that something that would have been there without Roy, or do you think that just made it even greater? Like
Well,
what was that connection about?
you got to remember they had a lot of brothers, and one of them happens to be a cop, right? In the '69 precinct. They were expected because to a point because they fight with their hands. I mean, it's your brother. They fight anybody that challenged them. I mean, it wasn't like they ran and got a gun or a baseball bat. They would fight, physically fight. And Patty was a very, very, how can I say, an entrepreneur. He knew
Yeah,
how to invest his money. He did it, start off slow with cars, and he built that whole thing up. And he was making very good money, honestly, by doing it honestly too. So as far as Joey goes, Joey completed high school, all shit, and started town. Joey got involved very early,
yeah,
and that's when I believe. Now, you can't hold this to me because I don't know for sure. I think Patty got involved with some of the guys that Joey knew and helped invest in some of his businesses. You know what I mean? And he made more money because the more money you got to do what you're doing, the more money you're gonna make. And certain went to where he got it from, and that was it. But
right,
Patty was a very smart guy when it comes to business wise.
right,
You know.
right. But was Roy using his dealership? I mean, would you say that there was a good reason why he had it?
Well, I don't want to say he had it because he had the dealership, but I'm going to
Right,
say I believe some of the money that got him that dealership came from certain people. You know what I mean? With a promise of certain money back.
right.
Which is just like going to the bank. I believe in applying for a loan. And it was basically the same thing. To me, maybe Patty couldn't go to the bank. You understand? But because maybe Joey said, and wound up helping his brother, and they all did good. A lot of people got good ideas and want to do things. They just can't get the money, and they can't go to the bank because they ain't got the right. But how could I say uh, things to put up to show for interest rate? They don't have it, and they go to other places and they get it. Don't get me wrong. Some of them turn out real good, and some of them are flops. You know what I mean? They just.
Right.
I know people like in the same business that Roy was in that would lend money into a business, right? Where the guy couldn't make it because the banks wouldn't give it to him. And eventually, well, they couldn't pay back the loan. Next thing you know, they were 25% partner, and then they were 50% partner. Then the guy wound up working for them. I
Right.
mean, it wasn't like the crew that I was with, They worked with the people as best they could. But don't get me wrong, a lot of became business owners, wise guys and stuff through that
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah. It's good to have a legitimate source of income, right?
Sure it is. Show me that. Without that source of income, you can't buy shit. If you can't show for it, that's the first thing they're gonna go for. Show
Right.
me how you bought that house. Show me how you bought that car. I know.
Okay, so Pete, you said something before, something that stuck out in my mind. You said if you weren't something to the extent of if you weren't afraid of Roy at least once, there was probably something wrong with you.
Correct.
So explain to me why you said. I think I know why you said that, but explain to me why you would say such a thing like that, and then explain to me having that feeling. What is it like answering to somebody like that? I guess it goes down to the whole is it better to be feared than loved type of thing, maybe Roy preferred to be feared than
You should.
loved, even.
Yeah, you talking about shots for Mary, son, yeah, from the Bronx Tale.
Exactly. It's that whole idea like, oh, what's better, right? So it
Listen,
sounds like he loved you guys, but and you guys loved him, but there was a fear angle there as well.
of course, how can I say this? We all knew that 9 out of 10 times, if it's going to happen to you, it's going to happen to somebody that's close to you.
Correct.
Correct, right? So in your daily activities, when you're not around him, you start thinking about all the things you did. You know, did you do something stupid or whatever? You know what I mean? I mean, it's just kind of crazy. Now, when you walked into that apartment back there, right, behind the Gemini, right, you had a long hallway. You know what I mean? Before you got to the kitchen, right? Now, as you get about halfway down the hallway, you see a top on the floor, right? And you say, "Oh shit," you know what I mean? Now, everything's running through your mind, like they say, like when you die, everything flashes before you. And now you're trying to think of everything you probably did before you came to dinner last time, right? I'm telling you,
Right.
you say to yourself, "Well, you passed the halfway mark. If they're gonna get you, you ain't gonna make it back out the door." But like I said, Roy was very, very on top of his game, basically. You know what I mean? And if I can't say that he would demise you permanently, but you know, you didn't even want to get reprimanded by him. Truthfully, you know what I mean? It's like your father when you did something wrong. You know your father loves you, but you can be a new asshole. That's what it was, you know. And plus, you knew what he was capable of. Without a doubt, you knew what that man was capable of. You know what I mean? In a heartbeat. So you might have feared him in a whole different senses. You know, he ain't like the boogeyman, but is he the boogeyman? You know, is he? It was just weird, you know. But he knew he loved us, and I know he loved us all. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
remember,
Yeah.
you gotta remember this. Look what happened to Harvey. Now he loved that kid,
Right.
and when that shit came down, it broke his heart. But yet, what did he do? He had to follow through. He had to do what he had to do. You know,
Right.
and I believe if something were to happen with any of us that we did something to embarrass or insult another family, it could happen. You know what I mean? And he'd have no choice. And you knew he would do what he had to do. I mean, he loved nobody more than that kid. You know what I mean? It's like a son to him.
Yeah, and it makes sense, obviously me being an outsider, but kind of looking at, maybe so just, even from just talking to you, like character traits and things that people are capable of doing, maybe it makes sense that they ended up together in that way. But last thing on Roy for today, being someone that has to answer to somebody like that, being, on that guy's side, how does that make you feel? And then what is the mood around Brooklyn and beyond when his name comes up?
Well, when his name came up, you got, and somebody knew that you were affiliated with him close by. You got carte blanche at most places. You know, I don't care, restaurants, anything you can think of. You know what I mean?
Really? It was like
Oh,
that. Really?
yeah, just like that. You know,
Wow.
yeah. So not to mention that he was who he was, but who he was with. You know what I mean? So that kind of like chain reaction. Gambino, Roy DeMeo, Gemini. Sure. What do you want? Copa, you want to see the front? Bam, you got it. You know what I mean? It was crazy. It came with a lot of how could you say not royalties, but how could I say can't think of the word right now.
Responsibilities or
No, it came with a lot of uh,
accolades, kind of accolades almost.
yeah, a lot of things. With it opened the door where it wouldn't. You know what I'm
It
saying?
opened the door. Yeah. Okay.
We
Okay.
got a lot of extra privileges
Yeah. Yeah.
that people want. I mean, we used to go to Studio 54 to be a line out there a mile long. Call up Steve Abell and he walked out to the side door and let us in. You know, it was
Wow.
people who looked at the wall like, "What the fuck? Who are they?" You know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's what carried. You know what I
Was
mean?
Roy like that? Was he a partier like that? Go to
No,
Studio
no, no, no,
54?
no, no, not at all, not at all. No, he was. I'm gonna tell you something. Roy was a family man.
Okay.
Everything he did was business. When he was done with the business, he went home to his family, to Blanche and his kids and
Yeah.
whatever. You know what I mean? Sunday barbecues and stuff like that. I said, you remember what I said at the beginning? That guy was a sleeper.
Right.
You know,
Right. Right.
and,
Yeah, and I don't mean to sound cheesy. I know you said Chaz Palminteri love and fear thing before, but
and
with him, it's like I bring it up because it's like outside of you guys, Pete, you hear stories, even of me just studying these things of well-loved guys within organized crime. Oh, he was a great guy. Even people over there loved him. Outside of you guys, can anybody say that? No, I've never heard anyone say something like that. Oh, I love Roy. Yeah, that was a great guy.
well,
Usually what you
the only
hear is
guy.
He was a sicko. Whatever. Everybody kept quiet when he came in the room. He was nuts. Nobody,
That's correct. You know what I mean? But now you got to think of the people that he helped out, led the money, or just giving it to him. He was the type of guy who helped people out without, anything in return to it. But there's probably far and few in between, and you're not going to hear him step up and say anything like that because, it's just not what you want to do. Put him on Front Street like that. He'd
Right.
rather be the guy like Charles Palmieri said. I'd rather be feared.
There you go. That's all I wanted you to say, Pete. So yeah, I was just trying to, because I've never. That's the only thing I could think of just studying it or looking at it. I can't actually believe that somebody, even Sammy the Bull, he went Team USA or whatever. I can't imagine someone like that or whatever saying, "Oh, I loved Roy." Roy's a great guy, or even anybody.
That's why he didn't want the contract when it came down.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Like that. Needed John. Look at John says even in the book. He says if I'm feared of anybody, it's Roy and that crew. If you kill one of them, you got to kill. Now that's in the book. Not I'm saying it. That's public knowledge.
Right. The book that's apparently the reason why Jerry Capisi wrote the book, because I think he said he heard on some FBI wire it was like Gene Gotti and whoever were talking about, oh, he's got an army of killers. If you kill one, you got to kill them all, whatever. Like kind of what you just said.
That's the truth.
And then Jerry Capisi said, "I got to write the book. I got to write the book." Jerry Capisi said, and he started stalking you.
Yeah.
So you got something on your mind, Pete? You want to tell a final story? Something good? Something funny?
I'll tell you about a pumpkin story when I was a kid.
What was it? A pumpkin?
Pumpkin stories. I call it the
Okay,
pumpkin
cool.
story. It's Halloween. I'm about 11 years old. Went out with my other two friends. And at that time, we were pumpkin swiping, right? So we steal this pumpkin from this guy's house, right? It was a big ass pumpkin, right? And I'm like the last guy on the line because I was the smallest. So I'm running behind him, right? And the door opens up and the guy's yelling, "You son of a bitch, just give me back my pumpkin." So the guy in the front panics. What does he do? He throws it over his head. What does it happen? Hits me in the fucking head, knocks me down. Now the guy's getting closer. I'm freak. I jump up, and now I'm running all speed out. You know what I mean? Got the ejectors on. I'm going, and I made one mistake. I looked back to see where he was, and I ran dead into a stop sign.
Oh.
I thought it was wow, and that's when I passed out. Next day I wake up, I'm in his house, this guy's house. I'm a kid, and I hear him and his son talking. What are we gonna do, Dad? What are we gonna do? Well, when he wakes up, I'm gonna bring him home to his parents and tell him what he's doing. Fuck, I said, oh, shit. So I got here, my mother's gonna kill me. So they come over and they start to see out my eyes a little bit. They're looking at me, and I jump like a little bit. They said, take it easy. So he started asking me questions, and the only thing I could do, I seen the movie, I started going, like that. Dad looked at me, he says, what the fuck's the matter with him? I'm hearing his son's looking, what's the matter with Dad? And he must be on mute, right? And the guy's going, take it easy, you're all right. And he said, where do you live? And the guy says, what the fuck are we gonna do? So his father tells his son, listen, we're gonna clean him up, right? Got some lump on his fucking head, I'm gonna let him go. I'm gonna follow him to his house, right? So I said, okay. They get me. I go outside, right? And they're walking behind me about 20 feet, right? And I go, yeah. And they step back. I took off like a motherfucker. They never found me. I got home. And that's a true goddamn story.
That's fucking man, scheming from a young age, Pete. Look at that.
Yeah. Character. I could have played the part well.
That's funny.
Should have been in the movies, you said here.
Yeah. You can't do that nowadays, so don't do that. They'll come after you with the pitchforks.
Yeah. You might have somebody that's mutant understand what I'm saying. Nothing.
Yeah. That's funny, Pete. Well, listen, this was good, Pete. I think a lot of people are going to get something out of this.
I hope so.
Before we go, in one sentence, explain why on earth Rudy Giuliani thought you were one of the best car thieves in New York City. Why would he think that?
I think I stole his car.
You stole his car? Is that what happened?
I think they timed me on this car thing. You know what I mean? That took me X amount of seconds to open the door and start the car. And they figured it took almost that long to start it with the key. And, my title was, minimum cars I stole a night back when it was cheap. Too bad it was a little later in life. It was 17 cars sometimes.
17 cars a night.
start at 11, I'd be done by 1. So you figure maybe 1, 2 hours, 17 cars. And that's when you're stealing cars. Chop shops wanted it done by color, model. It wasn't like, GM's GM. That's what they wanted. They didn't care. So I was working, you know what I mean? So
We'll do an episode on that one day, Pete. I think that would be cool. Pete leaves his house at 1 a.m. And what's gonna happen now? I think that would be interesting to go through, Pete.
I'll tell you a funny story. But it used to happen before I went out stealing them. If I used to go to this diner, but that's for the next time we go out. I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me on this. I'm not sure I'm doing or giving you what you want to hear, and if you don't like any of the funny things, please tell my friends here, and we'll drop it.
No, they're gonna like it. They're gonna like it.
Yeah, but anyhow,
they're gonna like it.
From the bottom of my heart. God bless you and your families.
All right, Pete.
I'm doing this for one reason too. Ain't about no money. I'm hoping that I could change just one person from ever getting involved with this kind of shit. Because it ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work. My father used to say, "You'd rather shovel shit against a tire for a penny a day than do a day in jail," and he was right. So I leave you with this, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope to see you all soon again. Hear you all soon again. And hopefully someday we're gonna have my buddy hook up where I can actually say hello to some of you.
Yeah.
Right.
Whenever you want to do that. I mean, Pete, internet's a wild place, but we'll talk, if you want to do a live thing or something like that.
I like to hear their voices too sometimes,
I would love to. Hey, you want to do that, Pete? I mean, I could bring people on if you want.
We'll wait a little longer. I'm still a little shy to this. And besides, that guy behind me, I'm tired of looking at him. I used to look like that. That's a son of a bitch and shame.
You don't look too bad, man. You look like Al Pacino.
You look like Al Pacino.
Yeah, you look like Serpico Pacino. You think you got a badge on over there or something?
I'm gonna tell you something. I went before that Judge Knapp, and he kept looking at me. I said,
Knapp, yeah.
He says, "You look just like that guy Serpico." I said, "Oh my god."
Hey, I guess it's not a bad thing, right?
Nah, shit, I'd like to be him right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You take care, Mr. Brett.
All right, Pete. Listen, hang on just a second. I'm just gonna end this. And everybody, thank you for watching over here on NYC Crime Spot. I hope you guys enjoyed this and you got something out of it, as Pete said. And we'll see you all very soon.
Bye, everybody.